Karina Costello, welcome. It's so good to have you on. We were just discussing that this is your first ROI and U career success tips show, and but you know all about ROI and U as our former one of our former interns, and this is really exciting. I didn't realize that we hadn't had you on the show yet.
No, I'm really excited. Thanks for having me, Suzanne. It was great being an intern for you, and I'm really excited to be on this live with you today.
Awesome, yeah, and you just graduated from University of Rhode Island. What were your majors again?
Public relations and writing and rhetoric, and I was also a double minor in psychology and communications.
Awesome. Well, that kept you busy.
Yes, no, definitely it did. I loved it though. I loved my undergraduate years. It was very fun. Yes,
Yeah.
definitely.
And you had some leadership roles on campus as well.
I did. Yes, I was the vice president of programming on the panel and a council. I was a part of URI Service Corps and the PRSSA Society too as well.
Oh, fun.
Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, a long time ago with intern from probably 10 years ago, she pioneered the social media ice cream social.
Oh,
And uh
awesome.
and that was really fun. We pulled together, we took some NIM speakers and we had a great panel, including the head of interactive at Dunkin' Brands, and had a really good time and then had ice cream at the end, which was awesome. Yeah,
No, that's awesome to
that was
hear.
really, really fun. Yeah, and that was early on. She was my second intern, and I think you got to be like close to the 22nd intern.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Oh,
so
a
it's
long
pretty
journey it's been.
fantastic.
No, definitely.
Yeah. And so you graduated and went full on into the job search. Did you have a lot of time while you were still in school to be job searching, or what did that look like?
So while I was still in school, having the different leadership roles that I had, it was a little bit difficult for me to balance really job searching. So it was something that I was doing more so like on the side, on LinkedIn, on Indeed, and I didn't really find anything. So after I graduated, I went back to my part time job that I was working at, and I started to look for jobs more in depthly in the end of May and June. And I found a few things, but nothing really worked out until towards the end of August for me. So
Hmm.
thankfully, I still had my part time job to go back onto.
And that's really common because by the time, once kids get out of school, it gets really hard to focus in hiring. And so you actually started your role at the end of August?
I did, yes. I was hired at the end of August and I started in September. So I started in mid September at my first role, which was in
Hmm.
marketing too.
That's awesome. And that's fairly common because, again, by the time you graduate, you apply, there's a whole hiring process, there are a lot of steps involved. Can you tell me a little bit about the interview process for the most recent position that you had?
Yes, so I found this job on LinkedIn actually, and it was the last job that I applied to. I think it was like a Saturday night, and I was like crying to my mom about how I don't have a job yet. So I applied
No.
to it and I heard back that week and they emailed me so that they were interested in conducting an interview with me. It was fairly quick, it was about 20, 30 minutes, just getting to know me, my experiences, and what I can kind of offer to them. And then the second interview was with another executive there, our practice manager, and that went well too. And then I went into the office and I met them in person and did some more additional documents, and then I was onboarded.
Nice. That's awesome. So what in your background do you think helped you a lot in the interview process?
Definitely having experiences such as internships and my independent study that I had too as well. I feel like it was great getting to, know different individuals and being able to talk about my experiences. And also my role in the panel and a council also helped because I have to say having someone work under me and also working above individuals kind of gave me more experience with talking to different individuals from different backgrounds and just kind of working on my skill sets too as well.
Yeah. And can you tell me a little bit about the role?
The role that I just previously had.
Yeah.
Yes, so it was a marketing role. I was a marketing coordinator, entry level, and it went well at first, and then started to notice a few toxic things that were happening there. But I did a lot of social media, which I absolutely loved, and there wasn't a lot of room for growth with myself. I noticed myself kind of getting a little bit bored at work after I was done with what I was doing, and I was trying to make all these new projects, but unfortunately, nothing really worked out with my superiors at my job. They didn't really want to move away from the norm. They wanted to continue going straight forward, and it was hard for me to kind of have all these different ideas and not have that support to put them into place.
Oh, that's frustrating.
Yeah.
Is there an example that you could give?
Sure. So this upcoming holiday season, I was actually in a meeting before this job actually ended, and I was telling them how I wanted to do like sort of like a food drive or even like a Toys for Tots thing in
Sure.
some of the offices that we had, and it was kind of just shut down and kind of said, "Oh, well, we were going to do this instead." But it was around my idea, but it just wasn't exactly what I was saying, and it was like, well, we don't really think that this idea is good, so we're going to go with this one instead. And it was just philanthropy is a big part of my life and something that I really love to look for in a job, especially with giving back to the community. And it almost felt like instead of doing like a Toys for Tots or like a food drive, they wanted to do like a competition between the offices. And it just wasn't something that I really found would be beneficial towards the community. And that's just one of the examples that sticks out in my head. And yeah, so
Yeah, it's interesting because it sounds like you were proposing something that was marketing and awareness building, and they were proposing something that was team and operations oriented.
yes, definitely. And
And I don't,
it wasn't fun bringing ideas to the table or even really motivating towards me to bring ideas to the table and just kind of have some of them shut down.
mm,
And there were some great ideas that I did bring to the table that they are still using today, but a lot of them it was out of the norm, as they would typically as I would say, or as they would say,
mhm.
and it just wasn't straight lining. It was more to the sides, and they just didn't want to really branch out of what they were really doing originally. So
Interesting. It sounds like a good position for marketing automation. Just set it all up and let it run like a vacuum robot. Um, yeah.
definitely.
And so I just wanted to make it clear too that you left that role. And can we talk a little bit about the new opportunity that you have, and then maybe we can circle back to some of the red flags.
Sure. So I wasn't looking for roles at this point because I was starting to kind of think about looking for new roles, but this role actually happened to come upon me. It's with a restaurant group, and I absolutely love this restaurant. I love this place. Amazing values, flexible. They encourage a great work life balance, super supportive, and my values align with theirs. Philanthropy is a big part of them, and they actually have their own nonprofit organization. So it
Wow,
really
cool.
matches up well with me and everything that I want to do. It's more of a project management marketing role. So I have individual contractors working under me for social medias, for the websites, and I'm just assisting them in doing more face to face marketing with individuals inside of this restaurant group, which I'm really excited about.
Wow, that sounds like a huge step up from here, write this email and send it to working with other experts, making I imagine that a lot of what you're doing is making sure that what the consultants are doing is on brand.
Yes, definitely. And it's a different type of marketing job, I have to say, because I went from going from a doctor's organization to now a restaurant group, and I definitely think that this aligns more of with my personality, with what I'm passionate about, and something that I can see myself doing for years to come, rather than just a, oh, I want to stay here for a year or two like my other job was. Or now this job that I have now, I'm thinking hopefully this works out long term, because it's definitely something that I'd love to be doing.
Well, it sounds like based on what we were saying, what our conversation before is that there's a great growth trajectory
Yes.
with this organization because you said that they could tell me a little bit more about it.
In terms of,
Well, they're a restaurant group, but then they're also doing other things. I think in my mind, I'm thinking, oh, it sounds like Newport Restaurant Group, like that they are one of the major local, not even a chain, but like a industry specialist. And they have multiple restaurants all over the state, different venues, all different menus, different vibes. but coming under this one central organization. It sounds a little bit similar to that, but
Yeah.
correct my math.
Wow. I don't think it's as large as Newport Restaurant Group. So there's one
Hmm.
restaurant, a bakery, and a bar too as well. So they're also opening up additional restaurants. They're building additional things to the property that they have in Farmingdale and
Hmm.
Farmingdale, New York, as I'm from New York on Long Island. But it's really exciting because I get to be a part of that and I get to kind of put my ideas forward and actually put them into place and make sure that they go well and bring new people in. And the great thing about it is like each one of those different places has their own audience. So there could be individuals of all different ages, all different backgrounds who come together and they do a lot of events, concerts, they host weddings, bridal parties, baby showers. It's a lot of different things and I'm really excited to be a part of the team with them.
That's
Yep.
that's fantastic, and it's gonna let you flex a lot of that marketing muscle. Now, when you interviewed with them, what were some of the things that they were interested in hearing about your experiences so far?
So I have to say their interview that I had with them was the longest and probably the best interview that I've ever had with anybody. It was about 2 hours long, and they were asking me super good questions that I never even really thought about ever being asked before while during getting interviewed. So some of the questions were, "What makes you passionate? What do you? You're in this situation. What would you do there? Like working in like I've never worked in a restaurant before, so it was a little bit different for me to answer these questions, but kind of just going over my strengths and weaknesses, which is typical to ask, but how could I be a part of their team with their work styles? So they kind of went over their work styles, asked me what my work style is, and kind of tried to see how I would mesh with them. And it
Hmm.
was really interesting having that because I've never really had that sort of an interview before. So it was great hearing that they actually wanted to see the type of individual that I was before I was brought onto the team.
Nice. That sounds
Yeah.
great. And you haven't technically started yet, so you're kind of in between.
No, not yet. I'm in between for this 1 week right now. I start next Monday, but I'm really excited to start there. So,
That's going to be fantastic.
yeah.
And one of the things that I think is important to talk about is how exciting it is to be entering into a company that you're excited about,
Yes.
as opposed to one like you said that you're just like, okay, I need to get a job, and I got to get something on this resume for the next job, and be thinking about the next job right when you're walking in the door for the first job, and which isn't to say that that's a bad thing to do. I think it's a good thing to do, but I think to recognize that it's hard when you graduate in May to get hired for September even. That's really difficult, and that's one of the reasons why we do a cohort right after graduation for ROI and U, because you go through the training and then you do an internship and then we line you up with the interviews so that boom, you can start in September, feet on the ground, running, doing all kinds of great work. But one thing I think is important is to think about not just landing a job, but landing something that you're going to be happy with and that's really going to launch your career. It sounds like this is a much better fit and longer term opportunity for you.
Yes, definitely. I have to say, my one advice would be don't just take the first thing that comes along. Really look into it and kind of think, all right, do my values align with this? Is this something that I can see myself doing long term? Because I have a lot of people that I'm at least friends with that I recently graduated with, and they're still looking for jobs because they haven't found the right fit for them. And I
Hmm.
think it's really important to look at, especially when you're doing the initial job search, kind of just read the overviews, look into other individuals who've worked there before if they're a larger company, and just see how well that you would fit into their company culture.
Yeah, that's a really great tip. What one thing that I think would be good, because you did do a lot of interviews. You did a lot. I mean, you were boots on the ground in your job search over the summer. So can you talk a little bit about what that was like?
Yes. So I found the majority of my jobs actually on LinkedIn and Indeed. And I wouldn't really recommend Indeed, to be completely honest. It just, a lot of the jobs that I interviewed with were from there, and it just was absolutely nothing like the job description was. And I did an interview for several, as I like to call them, scam companies, almost like
Hmm.
multi level marketing companies.
Hmm.
And it seemed like a great fit for me because I'm living on Long Island and they were in New York City. So I went in, I think it was like 3 days. It was like a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I took off of my part-time job to go into and interview them. So they wanted me to work like a half day, full day there and kind of sell things to individuals. And it was
Mm,
very strange to me because I was like, okay, so I'm going to be selling phones in Queens, but what am I going to be doing with this? Like, what's the path that this is on? And I remember after the first one that I had, it was in Times Square in Manhattan, and the head boss, wanted me to come into his office, and he was like, "All right, we want you on the team." And I was asking him questions. I was like, "Listen, like, are there any benefits? Or what's the salary? This, that, and the third." And he was like, "It's 100% commission, no benefits. If you take a day off, then you don't get paid for that day." And I was like, "All right, that seems fair for when you're first starting off a job. But what about sick days? What about holidays? What about all these different benefits that you really look for inside of a company?" And I know, like, starting out, it's nothing's going to be great. You're not going to be getting amazing benefits when you're first starting off, but it's the experience. And I was sitting there and I was like, this makes no sense. And I remember walking out, leaving, I called my mom walking to Penn Station. I was like, what did I just experience sitting on the LIRR, the train back to Long Island? And I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that. And I got excited for the next interview. Little did I know it was exactly the same thing, except I was going to be in the Bronx the next day. And
mm,
instead of them bringing me back to the city, I had to take the train back by myself. And I don't know the trains. Like, I didn't grow up inside of New York. And it was just a horrible experience. And then I realized when I was sitting inside the train after that second interview that the next interview was actually for the same exact company the next day. And
oh,
I was like,
jeez.
I was like, I can't go to this. But they were labeling themselves as two separate companies, which was the
Oh, wow.
craziest part. And I was like, this makes no sense. And I would never recommend doing this, but I canceled the interview. I was like, I can't go through with this because I can't do another day of this. So essentially, they were having me working a day going to sell things. I think one was for like Verizon and another one was for cell phones.
Hmm.
And it just almost felt like I was taking advantage of the individuals who I was like, especially selling the cell phones to. They were lower income.
Mm.
And I remember sitting there, and one of the girls who was like training me, one of the individuals who walked up looking for a cell phone, you had to pay for it. It was $50. And one of the individuals off the street, he didn't look like he was doing too well. And my mentor was like, "Oh, we don't care about how they're doing, just sell it to them, they'll deal with it later." And I was like, this is not the right job for me. I can't do this. And it just didn't align with my values. Nothing, not encouraging, not supportive. So I was like, I cannot go through with
And
this.
there's nothing really in the ad that would indicate that that's what's going on.
Nope. And it was scary because it's one of those things where it's like you just graduated college, you're looking for jobs, you get these companies telling you that you'd be a great fit there, that they want you to come in and see what a day in a life would be like. But it's like they don't tell you that, oh, you're going to be working during this day in the life
Right. Right.
interview, which I don't think is right, especially like it's hard because no one really talks about this.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. No, I think that that's a really good point.
mhm.
So that would be red flag, one, at least one red flag that we've covered, right? Like,
Yes.
keep an eye out for these scammy companies. I wonder if maybe you could look up on Better Business Bureau or, the company name. It just depends on, obviously they're, not legit, really,
No, and it's
for what you're
scary.
for what you want to do in your career. How many interviews do you think you went on over the summer?
Including, do you want me to include Zoom interviews?
Yeah.
Probably 20 to 30. I remember
Wow.
having my list of places that I applied to because I'm an extremely organized person. So I had everything written out on my notes on my laptop, and I was like, all right, LinkedIn, I applied to all these jobs. Indeed, I applied to all these jobs. And I found a few on Google that didn't even end up getting back to me. I was like, this is what they said to me. This is what day I have an interview for them. And I had probably well over like 120 places that I applied to in the span of like a month.
Wow.
But I made sure to go through and kind of edit my cover letter and go through my resume and make sure that it was custom for each job that I was applying to, just to kind of show off my skill sets in different
Hmm.
or the different industries that there would be. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. That's a lot. That's busy. 120 So that's actually, I think, a fairly good success rate. If you applied to 120 and you did like 30 interviews, those
Yeah.
are good.
No, it definitely worked out. I think it was just scary initially because it was like after you graduate, you're like, oh, well, what do I do next?
Right.
So I remember sitting down and just applying to places and getting that kind of over with. And then I found, as I was, looking into it more, I found places that I felt like would be a better fit for me. So it's
Hmm.
definitely my piece of advice is don't go for the first thing that really offers you because you don't know what might be waiting for you, or even if you put a little bit more time into applying and looking at the job description, you might not know what might come next for you.
Yeah, I would say Glassdoor is really an interesting resource that you can look. I've recently had to research clients and research potential partners, and I'm like, huh, okay, interesting.
Oh,
And there's always going to be negative stuff because the majority of the people, that's why they're there, right? They need an outlet. They want to warn other people.
yeah.
But, just to, might make sense to just take a quick look to see what kind of reviews are out there. Okay, now I know we're jumping around a little bit, but so you took this job in a medical practice that has multiple locations.
Yes.
Um, they really wanted to pigeonhole you into what they thought your role should be and didn't really allow enough creativity,
Hmm.
or at least weren't receptive to new ideas. Would you say that's accurate?
Yes, definitely. And a large reason why I decided to move on to my next role was my creative control. And I feel like what I bring to the table will actually be put into something else, like whether it's like events or face-to-face marketing with individuals. And I really didn't have that creative control. The only thing that I really had creative control over was the social medias, and there wasn't too much room for growth with that because some of the applications like TikTok, for example, no one really wanted to utilize it. So it was hard because I'm not a doctor, I can't really speak upon those things, so there was only so much that I could do for that.
Mm, interesting. Interesting. Yeah, I think, but again, these are all things that are not really revealed in the interview. So you went in and you were like, okay, this like first job, working through adjusting to their culture, and then it sounded like things sort of took a left turn. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, so I felt like there was a lot of gossip in the office, and it just like wasn't something that I was comfortable with, or like the way that they were talking about other individuals. It just I don't like talking down upon others, especially because I know that every single person has strengths and weaknesses, and you have to play upon both of them. And that's how you get a great work environment. You realize I realize that I have strengths and I realize that I have weaknesses, and other people might realize that too, but you take those things together and work with another individual and you play upon that. So creates a better work environment. And I guess they didn't really realize that. I felt like there was no communication or too much communication. And with too much communication comes no direction because you're getting told so many different things from different individuals. And it's like, oh, who am I supposed to listen to? But getting, angry emails about something that you were told to do from your direct supervisor and getting emails from somebody that's not your direct supervisor. It was like, oh, okay, this is strange, but
Mm,
I did what you wanted me to do, and I guess it wasn't what this person wanted me to do. So
too many cooks in the kitchen.
yes, definitely. I felt like it was more of like a control issue that was there. Like everyone wanted kind of control over it, and nothing could be done without the manager having control over it. So it was very strange having
Hmm.
different points of views come into it because nothing really was aligned at the end of the day, I have to say.
Right. Yeah. And this wasn't just an issue with you. Your colleagues, there's been a lot of attrition. You mentioned that also.
Yes, but it's very kept down low. No one really speaks about it, but I've worked with individuals there who will say things or pass comments, trying to get to know like my vibe about it. And I don't really like talking down on individuals, so it was interesting hearing from individuals that weren't necessarily in marketing roles there who also weren't too happy with their roles there because of they were getting told that they were doing things that weren't a part of the job description, or that just that they weren't exactly supposed to be doing, and it was supposed to be somebody else's role there too. So
Oh wow. Yeah, it sounds like a hot mess.
yes, it was extremely unorganized.
Yeah, and with smaller organizations that can happen, but how many employees do you think they had?
I think I think they had 99. I don't
Wow.
know why I remember that number, but I do for some reason.
Yeah. And did you tell me that they didn't have an HR department or anyone in HR?
No, unfortunately they didn't, and I, tried to rely on that, especially when leaving my role, and it just wasn't something that was really necessarily there for me. There were a lot of things that they didn't realize about, state laws that they didn't they just I tried to explain it to them, and I guess it caused a little bit of animosity, especially with like sick days and just an example thrown out there. But no, we didn't have a HR department, and I definitely think that that is a red flag that individuals should be looking out for. Make sure that the company that you go with has a HR department,
Hmm.
definitely, or an HR
Especially if they have
representative.
99 employees. I mean, it's not like a 10-person company.
No, and no HR. That's just not good. We had an HR individual there while I was there, but he unfortunately got fired after 2 weeks. So
Oh, jeez.
Yep.
Maybe he had too many creative ideas.
I just think that there were things going on there that they didn't want him uh, understanding. So I'll leave
Wow.
that one there. Yep.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. And another thing too that I just want to talk about real quick is how challenging these situations can be. But you actually, did you, did you line up your new job and then resign? I know that there was kind of a close overlap, but that the new position that you're just going to start, they asked you, right? You didn't apply to them. They approached you.
Yes, they did approach me actually through social media. And that's why I always say social media does wondrous things. Social media can be a great thing and also a horrible thing. So you have to make sure to use it responsibly. But
Hmm.
they actually approached me. I did post something on social media for them, and they were telling me that they're looking for a marketing director. I was like, oh, this is great. So I didn't know how I was feeling about my job that I had at the time. So I reached out, handed them my resume, and they scheduled an interview with me. And it went great. It was fantastic. It felt like a perfect fit for me. And I definitely say, take these things. And even if you're at a job you're not too happy with, don't feel like you need to stay there for a year or two. Just kind of make sure that you have something lined up.
Hmm.
Um,
That is great advice. And also, not like you said, just don't be demoralized. And now, like you're just getting over a cold. You took a little trip, little R&R detox trip. What did you say? You met your goals. You wanted to take a nap and look at palm trees.
My big goal is where I wanted to see some palm trees and I wanted to take a nap on the beach, and I did both of those. Even if it was only for 2 days, I was down in Florida. It happened. It's all right. It was good. It was fun. It was nice being in the warm instead of the cold weather. So
Yeah, but just to give yourself time and you get sick. And I think what you experienced was just a lot of pent up stress and how taxing that can be on your body. And I've had terrible boss experiences, and I would like the world really to get to a place where we don't have that. And I think it especially happens to recent grads. That's the time frame that it happened to me. That it's just this churn and burn. And one thing with ROINU is because you are walking into your career with skills, you're just bypassing all that entry level stuff. You can walk in like you have specific skills that you're able to bring to your new role. And I just hope that that's the direction that we're able to move in, and we're able to save people a lot of agony.
definitely. And even with your experiences too, I appreciate you telling me about your experiences when we were talking about this previously. But I think that a lot of graduates, want to get a job so quickly that they seem to forget about what's really important to them. and that's
Yeah.
their long-term goals, making sure that their values align with the company's, and just making sure that they're happy at the end of the day, because no job is worth it to stress and cry over at all. You got to be happy. You got to be able to have a work-life balance and just love what you do at the end of the day.
Love it. All right. Thank you so
Yeah,
much, Karina.
of course.